Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the TimeKettle WT2 Plus. These are AI translator earbuds which are selling for $230 on Amazon. The WT2s, however, promises to deliver better immersion and body language because the two speakers will each be wearing one earbud and can simply talk while looking at each other like a normal conversation, as opposed to a typical translator unit where they have to pass a device awkwardly back and forth or talk into this device, which kind of adds a physical layer of separation between the two people having the conversation. Now, the WT2 supports 36 languages and 84 different accents or dialects. For example, you'll see choices like UK or British accents versus American accents for English, for instance. There's three different modes that you can use to translate it with. One which is a simultaneous mode, so as you talk, it will be translated in real time without any delay into the other person's ear for their language that they can understand. The other one here is kind of a touch mode, which is basically you touch the earbud to say a sentence and then release, and then the other person will hear the translated sentence. Finally, the third one, which is a speaker mode, is basically you can wear one earbud and the other person can speak into your phone or tablet. Perhaps if the other person doesn't want to wear an earbud, it is another option to consider that's kind of similar to other existing translators that we've seen in the past. Now, this is relying on several different cloud AI engines to handle the smart translations. So just like the other solutions that we've seen, it does still require a connection to the internet for it to function. However, the intelligent part is that it can switch between different engines depending on the region that you're in. For example, if you're in China where Google services are blocked, it's not going to be using the Google translation engine, but rather use maybe Microsoft, for example, Bing, or maybe Baidu, or another solution. So it will automatically switch to the correct one depending on where you are to give you the best results. Otherwise, the earbuds themselves will last for 5 hours on a single charge, and the case can charge them up for another 3 times to give you a combined life of around 15 hours. And again, their vision here is to create a natural way for people to immersively translate and makes the translator disappear as part of the experience. And it has won quite a few design awards over the past year. As an illustration of those three modes, let's take a closer look. So this is the simultaneous immersive mode. Just talk like you're having a normal conversation. It simply flows. The next one here, which is for a kind of touch mode, which you can control. Perhaps if you're in a busier location like outdoors on the streets and you don't want it to accidentally keep on translating as people around you are talking, you can simply tap once to begin and tap once to stop. And there's another one here, which is in the normal speaker mode that you can have the phone out for the other person to talk into. Accuracy of translations claims to be around 85%, which is, I would say, decent and about on par with other smart AI translators that we've been seeing over the past year. Compatibility includes iOS and Android. Now, what's important here is that your phone needs to be running on Android 7.2 Nougat or above, or iOS 11 and above. All right, so inside of the sleeve, we have a harder package. It looks like this, pretty well presented, almost like a smartphone. There's a attention note, as well as a QR code that you can scan to download the companion app on the phone. Now, immediately we can see that the design of the battery case is a little unusual because they actually can be split in half completely, but they can be held into place magnetically and ultimately closed together. So let's take a closer look at that in a moment. But other packaging contents include a separate sleeve on the top that houses more detailed instruction manual. We also have access to an assortment of different wings and tips to get a more comfortable fit if the ones which are included by default don't suit you too well. There's even a larger wing that you can attach on for a more secure fit if you're worried about losing it and you're moving around a lot. There's also a micro USB cable used for charging up the battery case. Now, if we take a closer look at the design of the battery case, first of all, we have kind of the logo here, WT, and you can see how the lights here are flashing. It's actually flashing to give you a quick indicator of the charging status of the earbuds inside. Essentially, if the LED lights turn a solid color, it means that the earbuds are fully charged. If it quickly flashes 4 times, it means it's 90% charged. 3 times means 75, 2 times means 50, quick flash means 25%. And it will flash that on the corresponding side. So you can see how it's at different levels for the left and right sides of the earbud. There's a slight ergonomic tilt upwards, which makes it easier to to pull the two halves apart when you want to pop them out. And again, they are magnetic, so they can still stick to each other so that you don't lose any compartment when you are taking them out and then putting them back in. As a quick size comparison, here it is next to the Apple AirPods. So you can see that the compartment here is a little bit larger, but at the same time, it still is easy enough to put into a pocket or take with you when on the road. Here it is next to a pair of earbuds I think it's kind of is similar to in terms of design. We reviewed these called the Mi Zone TWS earbuds. You also pull them apart, but again, the earbuds on these are a little bit larger to accommodate bigger batteries, and again, a very clean overall case. Here it is next to the Google Translator in terms of size, so you get a rough idea as well. All right, so taking a closer look at the design of the earbuds next, we can see that there is a oversized fingerprint logo. It's actually kind of a sticker stuck on there, but it's a reminder for you to know where to tap on. You kind of feel the difference because it's slightly raised in terms of activating the touch if you're using in the touch translation mode like a walkie-talkie. There's also LED lights on the top of the earbuds to tell you when they're turned on or pairing. There is one side which you can see has a slight line on top of the dialog box. This is the guest side of the earbud. So you give this to the other person that you want to understand. And then your earbud, which is the host, is the one which doesn't have a line on top of it. So if we pop these out of the case here, they will instantly turn on. They will also turn off when you pop them back in. And the casing is magnetic, so it sticks in with a satisfying click. The earbuds themselves, as aforementioned, also look quite distinctive. They have kind of a pill-like shape, which is pretty interesting. And then on the rear here, we do have a very large silicone tip. This is a micro wing that locks into place inside of your ears. Now, one thing I will say though is that despite the fact that they do look a lot like TWS wireless earbuds, it is important to know that they can't be used for playing back music. They are really meant just for translation and not full-on headphones, at least at the moment. Once you open up the app, you can see how the earbuds will be paired almost instantly. So one thing to keep in mind is you don't pair this by going into Bluetooth settings of your phone or tablet, but rather you open up the app, and then from there, it's able to find the devices in this middle page, as you can see there. Once it is connected, you can simply turn off the screen of the tablet. You can put it back into your pocket if it's a phone and tuck it away, but it's going to be fully functional. You can just use it like you're having a real conversation without a need for you to always be touching or having the phone or tablet taken out and alive. So if we take a closer look at the companion application, we are able to search for other devices. We can see the battery percentage remaining on each earbud, and we can also change the volume directly here on the app, which can be pretty useful. Afterwards, we can then tap on the home to begin the different translations. And as aforementioned, we have the 3 modes. The third tab of the application includes a record log or history, which you can see of all the translations that you've tested out, and you can purge this. You can tap on it to take a look at more details, and it's recorded back and forth between the left and the right sides, which are dedicated for you and also your guest. So the host versus the guest side can be fully seen. You can also do things like save this a transcript or even email it to yourself for further record keeping. All right, so now let's talk about the performance a little bit. In terms of the overall kind of recognition and its accuracy, I would say it's quite good. It's as good as any other AI smart translator we've tried out this year, which again hovers around 85 to 90%. The simultaneous translation mode is a little bit weaker than the touch mode when it comes to the accuracy. That's simply because in the simultaneous translation mode, it's all about the speed of the recognition. So it doesn't have too much time to think and perhaps remember things that maybe you've said before. And it's always just trying to translate word by word really quickly what you're saying. It's kind of a bag of words model, as they call it in data science. Versus the touch mode, where it has a split second for it to then process, it actually becomes a bit more accurate in my testing. So for the purposes of a demonstration, I'm going to show the speaker mode first because it's the easiest to do with one person, and I can simply pop this earbud into my ear. Again, it fits pretty snugly in my testing, and I can tap on the earbud again in this mode to speak into it, or I can tap on the buttons on the app to begin recording my voice and then release for it to then start to translate. So the speaker mode is very similar to the touch mode, except again, it's done using your phone's display for the other person to speak into. Now I can change the language from the very top of the application here, so I can switch back and forth between your language versus the other person's language. I'm just going to talk in English. I can change the dialect as well. So for example, right now it says Indian dialect of English, but I can change that back into USA. There's Australian, New Zealand, South African, and also take a look at Spanish. Differences between Spain, USA, Mexico are all represented over here. We also have German, Italian, Russian. If we take a look at Chinese, we have the common Taiwanese, Cantonese, and Mandarin, which is just regular Chinese. So I'm going to talk in English. It's going to split out something in Spanish. I'm going to tap on USA Spanish. Hello, this is a test. Right now I'm speaking into the earbuds using English. Quick test 1, 2, 3.
Esta es una prueba en este momento hablando de los brotes del año usando la prueba rápida de inglés 13.
Alright, so I would say that it's gotten the recognition pretty good based on what it thinks I've said in English. It has dropped out, one slight word, which I was saying 1, 2, 3, but it says 13. You have to be more deliberate in terms of pausing between those numbers. For example, saying 1, 2, 3 versus say 123. So with this device out, the other person is able to see kind of the translated text as well as the original. You can tap on this button again to repeat the sentence spoken out loud, but they can also read if you want to just disable the speaker if you are, again, in a really quiet space, or if you're in a really loud space, you don't want people around you to hear, you can simply give this to the other person so that they can read it as well. Hola, esta es una prueba 1, 2, 3. So overall, the translation is done relatively well. It's recognized that hola, which is hi, followed by esta, which is this. It's actually the end of this particular phrase, and it's going to start a new sentence, which is pretty smart. However, just like the test before, it seems to have dropped the 1, and it's given us just a 2 and 3. So in terms of these smaller numbers, sometimes it does still have some minor, slight inaccuracies with. Now let's try using a different language. I'm going to still speak in English. It's going to translate into Chinese. Let's see how it fares in terms of accuracy. I'll tap on the earbud. By the way, whenever you tap on the earbud, there will be an audible beep as a confirmation that you've pressed on it, and then you can tap on it again. It will beep again for it to stop the speech recording. This is another test. I've just tapped on this earbud. Let's see how it does in terms of picking up my voice for the purposes of this translation.
这是今年的又一顶考验吗？但让我们来看看为目的翻译挑选我的情况如何。
So let's do another test, but this time maybe speaking in Chinese and see if it's able to do the reverse translation. Let's tap on the earbuds again. 测试的结果感觉还不错，速度也还行。
The country feels pretty good and the speed is also good.
So again, there are maybe 1 or 2 words which are a little bit off. I was actually saying that the results of the testing is pretty good. The speed is also quite good. Today, I need to go to the supermarket to purchase some eggs and milk. Can you please point me to the right direction? Even though certain words may have been accidentally missed, like today I need to go to, it's simply recognized as today I need the supermarket, the translation is actually smart enough that it's kind of filling in those gaps for me. So the translation in Chinese is actually saying today I need to go to the supermarket, as opposed to today I need the supermarket. So the other person can totally understand this without any problems. Overall, I think the results are what matters at the end of the day, and because the translations themselves are totally understandable and for the most part 90% accurate, I would say it's, again, not really anything to complain about, even though sometimes the pickup of the voice itself does have a few errors. By default, the gender of the person that's doing the translation is female, but they pronounce the words pretty naturally and cleanly and loudly without any kind of noticeable hissing, so it does also sound pretty good. So that's more or less it for our hands-on review of the TimeKettle WT2 year-to-year smart AI translator earbuds. It's a really cool concept, the fact that you can have such a natural conversation just by looking at someone, by talking, and it's able to process it and actually deliver pretty surprisingly accurate translated results to the other person to understand. It really is seamless, and it feels totally different from having a device that you have to pass back and forth. And it's fast enough that it doesn't become too awkward. Really, you don't have to wait for it to do too much of the processing. And when I did a quick comparison with it earlier with my friends, they definitely preferred the earbud approach just because it feels more immersive, especially as you're walking around, moving about. It's just much more comfortable and discreet. So they do really like this concept. And again, the results of the translations are only going to be more accurate down the line. There are perhaps still some occasional phrases and particular words which are hard for the cloud engines to totally understand and get 100% correct, but that's something that will be updated automatically as the technology ripens. It is a little bit on the high side in terms of price, but again, it is fair if you are comparing it with other wireless earbuds like the Apple AirPods, for example, sell for $200, and other smart translators, again, sell for around $300. But perhaps they can bring down the cost even more if it becomes really popular in maybe a second or third generation model. So you can learn more details if interested, but for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching through our OS reviews. That's been the TimeKettle WT2 Plus AI Translator Earbuds.